Hello and welcome to my video of testing out Construct 3. Now this video is not supposed to be a tutorial or necessarily show the best practices, but it was made with the intention of exposing people to Construct for the first time. I know a lot of people that create pixel art and say they want to get into game dev sometime, but it seems too difficult or they don't want to get started. And I wanted to show them how easy it is to open up Construct, plop in some artwork and play around. You might not be making a full-length game anytime soon, but you can create a prototype or just see how your art looks in action or just have a bit of fun with everything. So I had the idea to make this video when I saw that Construct 3, you can create stuff in browser without having to download anything. So you can go over to scar.com, click Construct 3, or go straight to construct.net, click Get Started, click Launch Construct 3, and you are up and running without having to download anything or even log in. You can click a new project to open a blank project. They have templates and examples which can be very useful or great to learn, but as a complete beginner, I feel like it can be a bit confusing to figure out what is already set up in those and what's going on. So let's just open a blank project here. My learning method is to jump right in. Kind of learn as I go. So instead of going over any settings, preferences, or explaining where to find things in the layout, I'm going to do that and just jump right in. So if you double click on the layout, a create new object prompt will appear. There are a lot of options here for options, plugins, etc. We'll start with your basic, most common in-game object, which is a sprite. This sprite that I'm making will be for the player to control, so I'm adding some behaviors to the sprite. Behaviors are a construct term for pre-programmed or already set up common use behaviors that you can quickly add to objects. So for the player, I'm adding the platform behavior, which makes the sprite act like a classic platform game, such as the Mario franchise, Mega Man, etc. I'm also adding the scroll to behavior, which will cause the camera to follow the sprite as it moves around the layout, and also the bound to layout behavior, which will prevent the sprite from moving off the layout, so that way we don't have to set up objects to block the player from leaving the layout. So with adding this one sprite and adding some behaviors to it, I'm going to click the preview button already. It's not going to do much, but you can see the behaviors taking effect already. Next, we want to give the player something to stand on. So I'll add a tile map to the layout and give it the solid behavior. The solid behavior won't let objects with platform behavior to move through them, so it'll make for good floor, walls, platforms, barriers, etc. Now with the tile map object set up, I can simply use the tile map editor, the pencil, or the area tool to draw out the level. And when I hit preview, I can move around, jump on the tile map tiles, and it seems much more like a level already. We're going to add some art and work on animations. I'm going to use Darkeyed and Aceway's free sprite packs, which I will link everywhere I can. I'll use their ninja pack. So what I'm going to do is add the sprites. They have them in sprite strips already, so there's an import from sprite strip feature, and you just have to specify the width and height as in frames, not the size. So there's 4 frames horizontal, 1 vertical, so cut them into sprites for you. We can adjust different properties such as the speed. We're going to click the box for the loop to make sure it will continuously play through and not just play through once and stop on the last frame. I'm going to test it really quick here just to see how it looks, make sure everything looks normal. And now I'm going to add the tile map from the asset pack. I will open up our tile map, click Load Image from File, and close the image editor. The tile size on the new tile map is 16 by 16, so I'll change the tile width and height in the tile map properties. You can see all the tiles have been changed over to the new tiles, so I'll erase them using the eraser from the tile map editor. Then I will add in the ground, buildings, and trees from their tile map. Now let's add some more animations to the Ninja. I will rename our first animation from default to idle, then create a new animation and name it run, and import the run sprite strip from the asset pack. The tricky part is finding the correct origin location on each frame of all the animations so that the animations will seamlessly flow not only within one animation, but when switching from one animation to the other. It takes a bit of trial and error, but previewing can, as you can see here, can help find the right spot quickly. After getting the animations set up, we need to tell the program when to switch back and forth between the animations. To do that, we will need to set up some events on the event sheet. First, we have to set up instructions on when the event will occur. I will choose when player is moving. This means every tick or frame that the game refreshes, this event will fire if the player is moving. I'll set the action that occurs to changing the player's animation to our run animation we just set up. I'll add an event below, which is the else event, which means it will fire off if the above event is found false. This one will set the player's animation to idle. Therefore, every tick the player is moving, it will play the run animation, and if not, it will play the idle animation. I will also set up a quick zoom so we can see better. I added the keyboard plugin and added events to occur on key press, which will zoom the layout scale in and out. You can see that when we zoom in, it gets blurry. That's because I didn't set up the project for some settings that need to be pixel art. So I'm going to do the main one is the sampling needs to be point instead of linear. And then I can also change it to letterbox integer scale, which means it will only zoom the project at integer scales instead of, I'm going to zoom this to 3.2 size to fit the screen. So now when we preview and zoom in, you can see that it's pixel perfect, it stays sharp, and it looks good. Let's add one more important animation. That's the jump animation. I'm going to do the same thing where I add another animation, import the files from the file strip, and set the correct origin point to make everything look smooth. I'm going to go back to the event sheet. I'm actually going to redo what I just did because that really wasn't the best way. I was just kind of giving a quick example. I'm going to use all of these triggers, the ones with the little arrows that say platform, platform on jump, platform on fall, platform on stop, platform on moved, and platform on landed. So these are great because they will just trigger when someone starts moving, or they stop moving, or they jump, or they land. On the on fall one is actually when basically they jump, when they stop moving up and they start moving down, it triggers the on fall, or if you just walk off a platform. So anytime you're moving down, basically. So now I'm going to line up all the animations to correspond with what these are doing. Pretty simple. And then I can preview and zoom in and make sure everything looks good, make sure that when I'm moving, it starts moving. When I stop, it goes to the idle. I did have to go back and break up the jump animation into a jump animation and a fall animation because they just had 4 frames of the jump and the fall together. So I had to break that up, no big problem. So I added the fall animation. The next interesting thing we need to do here is for the on landed animation. So when a person or character lands, he may stand still or he may keep running. So I can't tell it to play the on run animation because what if the player isn't moving anymore? He's just going to be running in place, and vice versa with the idle animation. So we have to make a sub event, kind of like a nested if for the programmers. So on landed, the next thing below is if the player is moving. So when he lands, if the player is moving, we're going to play the run event. If he lands and he's not moving, or the else, we're going to use the else function here. We're going to play the idle event. So that should take care of that, so that when he is landing from a jump, he will play the correct idle or run animation. I'm also going to remove the jump through behavior on the tile map here because I'm tired of him walking on trees and such, so we can preview this better. I made a solid object for the ground so that he won't fall through the bottom though. So we've gone over a lot of the basics in Construct, adding objects to the layout, adding behaviors to those objects, getting the animations set up for them, and eventing different and creating different events to control the objects or animations and so forth. I, in the stream, went on a little bit longer and added a few more things, added an enemy, added the player attacking with the slash animation, and it would create an invisible sprite that you would test if the enemy ran into that invisible sprite. It was like the sword hitbox, basically. Then you would destroy the enemy. We had to add a cooldown timer on the attack, just so you can't keep smashing the button. It would be a quick delay, so we added an instance variable if he's ready or not. After fractions of a second of the downtime, he'd go back to being ready and you could hit it again. The slash complicated some of the events we just set up about the animations, because if he's slashing and he lands in the middle of a slash, he should finish the slash, not go to the run or the idle, etc. So we just had to add a little more complexity in the events to troubleshoot that, or to make it work how we want. It's not really that complicated. It's kind of just the same thing we've been doing, but you just have to test things out, make sure you get it how you want it. I added the if the player gets hit by, or if the ninja gets hit by an enemy, I had him bounce back a little bit and flash. Once again, we aren't getting too complex with health or dying, because we're not trying to make a full game, just some examples. And that's most of the stuff. Quick overview of what else we got into. I'll put the full video on YouTube, but it is like an hour long, so I wanted to do a much shorter edited version here to give you a short introduction to Construct. Like I said, if you have always been wanting to play around with some game dev, but thinking it's too difficult or have to go through huge tutorials, I would recommend just opening up Construct 3, trying it out, playing around with a few things. It's kind of addictive to throw your artwork into the game engine and actually see things happening. This was my first one of these, so I apologize if there's any lack of quality here. But let me know what you think. I would love to do them again if people are interested. Thinking about doing some tutorials for beginners that haven't done any game dev and how to use Construct, and then also some really short tutorials for advanced Construct users, just how to make little features, or maybe not advanced, intermediate. So not tutorials how to make a whole game, but how to add little features to a game or little effects to a game. All right, thanks for watching, and send me a comment about what you thought. I'd appreciate it. Later.